can!
It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both.
Hi, you're watching Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get the show started. On the show today, pressure mounts on the authorities over the stampede in the city of Bengaluru that killed 11 and injured over 50 people. The IPL franchise, RCB, continues to be under scrutiny. But is BCCI going to take serious action and put in certain rules in place for teams to follow here on? South Africa's lead pacer Kagiso Rabada has been under fire after he was forced to skip the IPL for taking drugs. He's out to seek redemption after the suspension, and the comeback was his fifer on day one of the World Test Championship. And is Mexico going to crumble under the pressure of pulling off a great FIFA World Cup 2026? What challenges lie ahead for the co-host of the mega event battling? And can they get their act together in time? But first, a look at the headlines on Sports 360. Starting with cricket, Australia's Steve Smith surpassed cricket greats Don Bradman and Garfield Sobers in a unique record at Lord's during the World Test Championship final between Australia and South Africa. Smith scored 66 runs. By doing so, he became the highest overseas run getter at the iconic venue. He has scored 591 runs in 6 matches. In football, the collective revenue of Europe's football leagues surpassed $43 billion for the 2023-2024 season. This is an 8% increase from last year. The biggest contributor in this are leagues in England, Spain, Italy, Germany and France. With a collective revenue of over $23 billion, over a third of that sum comes from Premier League in England. In a major boost for women's tennis, the governing body WTA will protect the rankings of players if they chose to undergo a fertility procedure. Players who need to take time off from the tour for procedures can do so without risking their rankings. This will apply to the top 750 ranked players, and they can miss 10 consecutive weeks of competition. In Formula One, Aston Martin driver Lance Stroll will return to the racing tracks at his home race, Canadian Grand Prix. The driver missed the Spanish Grand Prix owing to a niggle, which is why only 19 cars took to the racing tracks in Spain. The Canadian driver was operated upon and is now declared fit to return. And summing it up with news from NBA, Indiana Pacers have taken a 2-1 lead over Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Finals. Benedict Mathurin's top scored as Pacers beat City Thunder 116 to 107 points in Game 3. The fourth match of the 7-match series will be played on the 14th of this month. Bengaluru witnessed one of its most tragic celebrations, the excitement and thrill of an RCB win, but turned into a nightmare. A nightmare for the many fans who had thronged the city right outside the stadium that day. And this is one developing story that refuses to die down. With the state authorities completely washing their hands off the matter, all fingers are being pointed to the franchise RCB to take responsibility for the death of 11 people that day and injuring several others in the manic stampede that occurred. And of course, there's one relief that the franchise has gotten at this point is that the verdict at the court that came out just a while back gave some relief to those who had been arrested. They have been the bail has been agreed upon and they've been released. But that's the only relief for this franchise. The Indian board, though, now is forced to take some steps in light of these developments. Now, just to set something straight here, while the IPL Council does govern the workings of the league that the franchises are a part of, that window is the IPL. From the day it starts to the last day, the day of the final. Whatever the franchises do after the season is complete is under their own watch. The IPL Council members have no say in it. They don't make decisions pertaining to any of that. That was also something they were quick to say when this disaster erupted, that they had no hand in this tragedy whatsoever.
Our heartfelt condolences go to the families who lost their loved ones. For the BCCI, the IPL concluded last night. We had no knowledge of such an incident occurring. So how can we be held responsible for it?
But truth is, the horrors of the post-win celebrations has put the IPL and RCB under the scanner. It's not just the franchise, but the league too has got dragged into what clearly has been a huge blunder. So needless to say, the BCCI needs to step in and take cognizance of this debacle and ensure something of this magnitude doesn't occur again. Because let's face it, what's taken a massive hit via this ill-thought-through victory celebrations, and what it amounted to, of course, has been the credibility of the franchise. As unfortunate as that may be, and the image, of course, of a league that is among the best-run sports leagues in the world. What we are hearing is that there will be some discussions on whether the IPL Governing Council can put forth additional rules that various teams will have to adhere to and follow when it comes to post-IPL celebrations. While this is still the prerogative of the respective franchises, at least up to this point, the mismanaged chaotic day in Bengaluru that claimed lives and resulted in utter mayhem across the city has prompted the board to take this matter up, and rather seriously. Which means there could be a scenario, much like what happened during the pandemic, of reserved and mindful events. IPL could make it mandatory for certain things to be in place in case there is a desire for a victory celebration. That only if the team in question met these demands would they be allowed to execute their parade or event. This definitely puts a lid on what has otherwise been a free and vibrant IPL, with every franchise having its own way and means of conducting these things, organizing events and involving the crowd, more importantly the fans who invested in the team. That unfortunately will now take a hit in all certainty, and unfortunately so, because even if Bengaluru did many things right on the field, there were far too many errors committed off it, leading to a stampede. Like regular announcements of the victory parade and free tickets on their social media platforms that only resulted in a frenzy being generated among all locals. Not taking the necessary permissions required to undertake something of that scale in very, very short time, and then of course carrying on with the event irrespective of what's happened and despite the situation clearly going out of control. This could go down as a footnote of one of the most deadly episodes to have marred the IPL in its 18-year-long rich history, and that's what the league and BCCI want to rectify and correct, so that something like this never occurs again, an event that has only brought sadness, grief and disrepute to the league itself. The WTC Final is underway, and after 2 days of play, it's clear this game will most definitely be decided by the bowlers. At the heart of it all, of course, is South Africa's pace spearhead Kagiso Rabada. He ran riot in the first innings, a massive comeback for a player who faced intense scrutiny just before the final. Rabada was caught up in a doping controversy just some weeks ago. Once again, the South African team entered an ICC final carrying the burden of the choker's tag. But they also came with the hope of proving critics wrong and winning their maiden senior ICC title. For their lead pacer, Kagiso Rabada, this was more than just a trophy. It's a story of redemption, turning the tide against criticism and proving his worth on the biggest stage. In the lead-up to the WTC final, Rabada tested positive for a banned substance. Reports say the substance was cocaine. It happened during South Africa's T20 League in January, but by the time the test results were confirmed, Rabada was already in the IPL playing for Gujarat. He withdrew from the tournament, citing personal reasons, which of course later turned out to be linked to this doping issue. Rabada was forced to accept a minor 1-month suspension, but what followed was a wave of criticism. One of the strongest voices in this was, of course, former Australian captain Tim Paine.
I don't like this use around personal issues, and it being used to hide stuff that isn't a personal issue. If you have a professional sportsman that's tested for recreational drugs during a tournament in which he is playing, that doesn't fall under personal issues for me.
Another athlete who was caught up, of course, on a doping web has been tennis star Yannick Sinner, who also served time 3-month suspension for an act he says was unwitting. The debate in the tennis world over his innocence, of course, still rages on. But over in Rabada's case, it wasn't a performance-enhancing substance, it was a recreational drug, and something he consumed willingly, for which he did the time. Now, what Tim Paine was trying to do here is play the classic Aussie mind games, because before the WTC final, he knew exactly how crucial Rabada would be for South Africa in those conditions. Rabada is their fourth highest wicket taker with 332 wickets in just 71 matches. That's a list filled with some of the best South African bowlers all time. With 52 wickets to his name, Rabada also leads South Africa's wicket takers in the current WTC cycle, 11 more than his teammate Maharaj. He has been crucial in South Africa's qualification for the WTC Final, and that goes without saying. Clearly, Tim Payne knew Rabada would be a major threat, but instead of succumbing to all the pressure that has been going around him, Rabada has come out strong. Rattled the Aussie lineup in the first innings. He picked up another 5-wicket haul, bowling Australia out for 212. And despite this stellar performance, Rabada hasn't lost sight of his past and the mistakes that he's made.
It wasn't my best moment, as I've alluded to. Now, life moves on. I think every game that I play for South Africa, I try to do my best.
Now, it was a misstep on Rabada's part, but what he's done now is channelize all of that into breathing fire.
It's been a couple of weeks now that I guess everything has unfolded. Conversations have been had, and I think he's in the best shape that he's ever been. So definitely motivated. We also play against the Australians as well, so that'll be extra motivation for him.
Of course, the one positive is that South Africa seems to have addressed this matter and not brushed it aside like any other controversy. But if South Africa wants to script history, they'll need more of Rabada in this kind of form. Lords is clearly turning out to be a paradise for bowlers if Rabada can repeat his first innings act of heroics, and Australian comeback will be a little difficult to make. And Rabada knows exactly what an ICC victory means. He was part of South Africa's only ICC title winning campaign. He was part of the 2014 Under-19 World Cup squad. Now he has another chance to achieve glory, and especially with the senior side. Much bigger this time, a real fairy tale. End South Africa's wait of winning an ICC event and a chance for redemption at the home of cricket. Clearly, it's more than just about a trophy for Kagiso Rabada. The countdown to the 2026 FIFA World Cup has officially begun. Hosts, the United States, Canada and Mexico, are preparing for what should be a landmark edition of football's biggest tournament. But rather than excitement and fanfare, the spotlight so far has been on the drama leading up to it all. With less than a year to go, the buzz isn't about how historic this World Cup could be. It's more about what could go wrong and who's at the center of it all. After America, all eyes are now on Mexico. The football-crazy nation is racing to revamp one of the sport's most iconic arenas, a stadium that has hosted legends like Pelé and Diego Maradona. But can Mexico really deliver on football's grandest stage amid geopolitical tensions, domestic challenges, and a highly charged atmosphere? Our next story takes a closer look.
The 2026 FIFA World Cup was initially seen as a Donald Trump showpiece, touted as a project by the sports-loving president and close ally of FIFA chief Infantino. And in many ways, it still is Trump's World Cup, but not for the reasons anyone expected. His policies and decisions are now becoming a huge red flag for FIFA's premier tournament. From strict visa policies to the general lack of buzz in the United States, concerns are mounting about the tournament's execution and its success. But perhaps even more worrying is Trump's deteriorating relationship with co-host Mexico, a nation that is far more passionate and prepared for the event than its neighbors up north. In Mexico, the excitement is real. A countdown clock was recently unveiled and fans have gone wild in anticipation, and they should. Mexico is on the brink of making history by becoming the first country to host the World Cup 3 times. And at the center of it all stands the iconic Azteca Stadium. This is the same ground where Pelé lifted Brazil's third World Cup in 1970, and where Maradona's famous Hand of God goal helped Argentina clinch glory in 1986. Azteca isn't just a stadium, it's a living museum, a temple dedicated to football where every wall breathes history. But here's the challenge. Despite its legacy, the stadium is stuck in the past. A full renovation is underway to bring the facility into the 21st century while preserving its rich history. And to raise the stakes even higher, this stadium is set to host the World Cup opener. The $110 million renovation project is already in motion and funding is secured. But Mexico's turbulent political climate could still derail the progress made. Trump's tariff policies have placed heavy economic pressure on Mexico, a move that may affect resources and planning in the final stretch. And that's not all. The Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, is under fire from the US, accused of encouraging protests in Los Angeles, protests that have reportedly infuriated Donald Trump. Tensions are rising, and Mexico, along with its leadership, is quickly falling out of Trump's good books. Given Trump's well-known hardline approach, further restrictions on Mexico seem likely, which could push the country into an even deeper crisis. But the issues don't end at politics. Mexico is also battling rampant crime, with drug cartels taking control in parts of the country. There has been a disturbing rise in attacks on officials, public figures and celebrities. That's not the kind of environment FIFA wants for a global tournament that is supposed to grab all the attention. And a state of panic is not good for a plummeting economy either. And then there's the drama surrounding the renovation itself. What was meant to be a symbol of national pride has now sparked public outrage, as authorities consider renaming the legendary Estadio Azteca. With FIFA's American dream failing to generate the expected buzz, the pressure is now on Mexico to deliver a spectacle worthy of its football legacy. Azteca was meant to be the crown jewel. But with political tensions, economic instability and cultural backlash mounting, can Mexico rise to the occasion? Or will the home of legends be overshadowed by crisis, controversy and chaos?
On to last serve. It was party time in Ecuador as their team qualified for the FIFA World Cup 2026. This is Ecuador's second successive qualification at the FIFA event, and fans couldn't contain their excitement. Take a look. That wraps it up here on First Sports. I'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.